Hello and welcome to Betfred's Football Show. We've got a pair of derbies this weekend in the Premier League. The Manchester derby, the North London derby. We've got the case for defence with Paul Parker and Paul Robinson. If I start with Paul Robinson, what did the North London derby mean to you as a player?
Nothing until I went to Tottenham, obviously. I mean, you don't realise the magnitude of the game and how much it means to everyone involved with the club, the supporters, until you get there. I mean, it's the old cliche, it's the first fixture you look for when the fixtures are announced. But I think it becomes apparent when you're actually part of the club. It's huge to a season for what it means to those two teams. It's families, it's friends, it's work colleagues, it's bragging rights, and especially with the teams now being closer than they've ever been. And derby days are different to any other day. You know, you get up in the morning, everything is all about derby day. Driving to the stadium seems different. Being in and around the stadium, different. People in the stadium as you get in there reminding you, we're going to win today, aren't we? You know, the week leading up to a derby game is different as well, in all honesty. The media, all of a sudden you do the press the week before a game. You play in any other team in the Premier League, there's a standard amount of press there. The week before the derby, the press room's full. The interviews are tenfold. It's just that brings it to a whole new level.
Parks, what did a Manchester derby mean to you?
Everything that Paul said, but Manchester United v City. No different, really. It was exactly the same. A little bit different in the sense of when I went up to Manchester, then I knew that game was always big. I used to watch it on the TV. But when you actually come and live in a two-team town, and you suddenly realise that you're passing people in the street and they're kind of they're looking at you for some kind of reaction. They want to ask you a question about it. The worst feeling could have been, for me anyway, if I'd lost a Manchester derby and then having to walk past people. I was lucky enough never to have lost a Manchester derby while I was here in Manchester. So it was maybe a different one for Paul. His derby during your time was a little bit more competitive than what the Manchester one was.
Well, I've never lost a Manchester derby either. But no, I mean, the time that we played, you're right, we were playing against like the Invincibles, the Arsenal Invincibles, and we were a Tottenham team at the time that were far inferior of that Arsenal team. I mean, the Arsenal team at that time was fantastic, and it was strong, it was better, and we were always looking to get something out of the game. I mean, we'd obviously go into the game, you'd want to win the game, but if we took anything from the game, it's different now, because I mean, how tides have changed in North London, but at the time, my derby was different to what it is now, definitely.
Well, let's talk the Manchester derby first of all. 12:30 Saturday lunchtime. It's second versus fourth. And Parks, while we've got you, let's just talk a little bit about Manchester United. Right, Erik Ten Hag. It's 8 wins on the bounce. It's 3 Premier Leagues on the bounce, 3 clean sheets as well. Did the culture need resetting at Manchester United?
Oh, 100%. Everything had to change. We knew the problems on the pitch. No one really knew about the problems off the pitch. People knew there was problems because there was stories coming out everywhere which didn't smell right, what was going on. Too many stories coming out. So you always knew it was coming out via the squads, just to let people know that the hardship they were going through, how tough it was for them. He turns up, then all of a sudden, you're not getting as many stories, you're not getting no stories. Players are suddenly, you're hearing stories of players being hit with fines. You're suddenly seeing that he's making strong statements, which...
Rashford dropped. He was playing so well for being late for a team meeting. That's like your old boss Fergie, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. And people were having a go at... Then Ten Hag saying, he can't do that, he's playing too well, you leave him out, you're going to get beat. You end up winning the game. Marcus Rashford comes off the bench and he scores. But still, he made a decision because he'd gone and done that with Garnacho as well, didn't he? He'd done exactly the same to him, and he just made... One's different, no one's different than him. You're all the same, and he kept you that way, and that was a statement, no different to what the way Sir Alex was. The rules were never up on the board. You just knew what they were. You just don't disrespect your teammates and the football club. It's as simple as that.
We'll talk closely about the game, obviously, but is this where he'd have wanted Manchester United to be? In the top 4, in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, in the 4th round of FA Cup. I mean, this is success so far for Ten Hag, isn't it?
It is, but I don't know the man, but I think he's gone a little bit to the excess of what he was expecting. He just wanted to make sure that he got wins and he got performances and he was able to turn things around. The players that he brought in delivered, because that's off the back of him. They were the ones that people are waiting for to come back at him with, and it's all come off for him. this is all a bonus at this moment in time. The league position, yes, the Champions League is what he want to aim for. He's managed in it enough times, but to be in a semi-final so early and the possibility of getting to a final and winning silverware is something that he'd want to do, because of straight away that lays down a great foundation to build off. Even Sir Alex never got anywhere near doing that, so that straight away, that's something new. Being in this position they're in now is the best it's been since Sir Alex retired, because they look more stable. Everything before was all bits and bobs and ducking and diving and just making it through. David De Gea made a massive difference to all the managers because of the saves he'd made, kept him in games. Was it Mourinho? Europa Cup, there was a save at the end against one of the Swiss sides.
Right. Well,
It meant they were going
played
out.
the season about 3 years on the bounce, wasn't he?
So that says a lot when the goalkeeper wins it at Old Trafford.
Especially Manchester United.
So Ten Hag has been absolutely incredible for the club, but even himself, he's had his fingers crossed and it's coming off for him.
Right, so looking from the outside, is Erik Ten Hag the man to turn the Manchester United juggernaut around?
I think looking at it, you look at the results he's got, you look at this, you talk about the semi-final of the Cup, etc., where they are in the league, the results, the way that they're playing. I think the way that they're playing is the biggest indicator. But I think the biggest thing from the manager's point of view is the results they're getting vindicates what he's doing. So as a manager, he comes in, he puts the ideas into the players, puts training sessions on. If you're getting beat every week or it's not quite working, all of a sudden players are looking at the manager going, what's going on here? It gives him strength, it gives him credibility in a dressing room because what he's doing is working. So then the players buy into it, the players believe in him. He gets trust. So you look at what he's done with Harry Maguire. Interested to know what Parks thinks, because that's his position at the back. Harry Maguire's been to the World Cup. People say he shouldn't play. Had a good World Cup, potentially one of England's best players.
People are saying he shouldn't even be on the plane.
Comes back, doesn't play the first game. Luke Shaw, a left back, plays centre half. Okay, Luke Shaw plays all right, but then he plays him again. I think, but then they're big decisions what a manager makes. He's vindicated in those decisions because his team's doing well and people are buying into what he's doing. But for me, I think the decisions he's making, he's getting right because the results on the pitch are getting right. If from Harry Maguire's point of view, I personally think he'll leave. I think he's gone in January.
If that was me in Harry Maguire's position, being at Manchester United, I wouldn't want to be there because you've been around it, you've done everything. You wouldn't want to be around it. You feel belittled. You don't feel comfortable. You don't feel, especially the results and
He's
performances. Still the captain. It doesn't make sense to me why he still is at this moment in time. That's the one bit that hasn't been sorted out yet. But I think Harry has to move on for his career. He's not going to be at Manchester United. Luke Shaw, as you mentioned, has gone in there and he's played well. The first game against Forest, was it Forest the first one? I thought that was too easy. The next one away to Wolves, under a lot more pressure, and he'd done himself justice, incredible in that position. And the good thing he gives you, he's got a left foot. He looks to play at the left side. There's attacks are starting either side rather than everything being.
But if they're both fit, it's going to be Varane and Martinez, isn't it? Against City?
Without a doubt. There is number. You've got 2 World Cup winners and one who's lost in the final as well. Playing in those centre half positions, you can't get much better at this moment.
But if you're Harry Maguire, you've got a left back playing in your position, so you're not second. You're not like first replacement. He'd rather play somebody out of position than play you. How was Harry Maguire be knocking his door down after the World Cup, saying, "Look, what's happening? Why aren't I playing? Do you not fancy me? This isn't for us." I think he'll move on in January. I really do.
Right, well, let's talk about the game. The head-to-head is not good for Manchester United. City have won the last 3 derbies. The last win for Manchester United in a derby was the 8th of March 2020, and then we went into lockdown. So City have won the last 3, and Manchester United were lucky to get away with 6-3 at the Etihad, weren't they?
They were.
It was never 6-3.
No, it was never 6-3, but it made it look better. So when everyone looks at it now, no one's going to ask about the performance. They're just going to see the goals. Could have gone either way at some point, they might think. But they were lucky. City were head and shoulders above them. And yes, Martial scored. I remember him scoring 1. Everything was just blotted out. It was all about what City were doing.
Yeah, Haaland and Foden hat-trick. City lost to Southampton on Wednesday night. None of us saw that coming, but Southampton deserved it.
We're guilty of it quite often. We've sat here before and said in the media, as ex-players, as pundits, we sit here and we'll talk first of all what happened to Manchester City, what went wrong. Got to give Southampton a lot of credit because they've really been poor this season under Nathan Jones. I question his appointment. I'm not so sure of his managerial credentials at that level, whether he's the right man to keep them in the Premier League. But he got a tune out of his side. Yep. They played on the front foot. They attacked City. From a City point of view, I don't know what would worry me more, the home draw against Everton or the defeat at Southampton, because at the moment, they're not the same City that we've been expected to see.
Manchester United lost more Premier League home games against Man City than anybody else. For a big price, Manchester United as well, to savour at home. It's 3-1, the draw's 11-4. Man City are odds on at 4-6. Right, come on then. How do you see the game on Saturday lunchtime?
I see this game maybe being already maybe the most competitive one. The one for the first time, I would say myself that I...
First time in about 3 years.
What?
No, that has, it has been competitive of late, has it?
It hasn't been competitive for a while, but I'm on about just in general. Every time, doesn't matter, even under Ollie, everyone said Ollie done well. It was always, yes, done well against City. A lot of the other teams were the problem, not so much City. Done all right at the Etihad. I'm looking at this one and saying to myself, I can really believe in this game more than what I've ever done in a long, long time. Just by the way that United are playing. I don't think Ten Hag is going to be saying everything, you've got to do this and do that. He's virtually, in my opinion, he'd be saying to players, look what you've done before, you've done this, don't worry about them. Look at what they've done over recent weeks, look at their performance. You try and work that to your performances, you match them. And I just think it's a great time to be playing City. Not because of the defeats, because of the fact of United are in such good form. They cannot be in a better position now to play City if they wanted to.
And clean sheets, which have been very hard for Manchester United.
They have been hard. I have to say, David De Gea has made a few saves, but not as many as he used to make in games. The back four are definitely not giving away as many opportunities as what they used to. Now, it's a better defensive line than what they've had in many a season.
This is Pep Guardiola's 500th game of his top-flight managerial career. How do you see Saturday lunchtime, man?
Worries me the way that City are playing from their point of view, but one thing that did worry me this week was when Guardiola said he's got some really out-there ideas. We always know that Pep overthinks quite often in big games. You look at the Champions League, you look towards the end of the season, you look against the bigger teams in the Premier League. He tries and be an innovator too often. He said he's got some big ideas how to play against this United game, against United team. So from a City point of view, I worry the way they're playing and that Pep overthinks it, and especially because the result they've got against Everton, the defeat at Southampton, then makes him think even more. Like Park says, I agree, Manchester United have not been in this position against City for a long time, and what you said about them being a big price, they're a good price at home. Some
sort of crazy ideas like playing De Bruyne, Haaland and Mahrez.
Oh, listen, it depends what order he shuffles the pack into.
It was a very different City team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Against Southampton.
Very much changed. But, I mean, you look at their squad. I mean, they're capable of putting out 2 11s that could compete in the Premier League. Manchester City's so-called second-string 11, whatever that is, could compete and finish mid-table, if not top half of the Premier League, without a doubt.
Yeah. It's a massive game. It splits offices, workplaces, families, the city. It's a huge game globally as well. Let's hear from Andy Mitten, and then we'll get the predictions from the fellas.
To look at it and say, yeah, United are going to beat City, but I've also got to be sensible, and I know that Manchester City are a world-class team. I'm looking forward to it. I'm nervous, there's tension. It's great for Manchester. It's great that a city which isn't the biggest city in the world will receive so much global attention on Saturday because of the 2 football teams. And there's cities around the world which are far bigger than Manchester, which would love the profile that this city gets because of football. It's brilliant. But yeah, a good win against City at Old Trafford would really show that Manchester United are onto something. The league table suddenly would look really tight. And people might start saying, is there a chance we could, win the league this year? Don't think that's happening. You would have said to me a few weeks ago, top 4 would have seemed like a success. But United are doing really, really well. To continue and even take a draw, but maybe I shouldn't say that.
Andy Mitten there. I tell you what, Manchester United do win Parks, then they go just 1 point behind Man City, and then they're at Arsenal next weekend. Surely you're not even thinking like that, though, are you?
I have been, to be perfectly honest, and normally I'm quite sceptical, aren't I? Yeah. But I am thinking...
Miserable's a word,
OK, then, fair enough then. Yeah, I suppose I have been, really. But I would turn around and say, if they took 4 points out of the next 2 fixtures, you've got to take them seriously. As much as you don't want to say, no, they're not good, they haven't got this, it's going to take time to build, still got to sort out problems off the field, still need a better squad, they'll be in an unbelievable position where you have to talk about Manchester United competing to win the league. If they get to that level of being within a point, 2 points of Arsenal, or even just being in second spot at this time of the season, you've got to talk about them, and there'll be more belief about it than what there's been in a long, since Sir Alex retired. It would be the first time, even though Jose Mourinho will still keep talking about he'd done a great job getting second. It was the worst second.
Big gap to
it was
Man City,
it was the worst second
never
in the
felt
world.
like we were in contention, did
never.
they?
But look at it now. Like, City are not going to run away with it. Liverpool are nowhere near it.
Yeah.
Arsenal,
Well, we're going to talk Arsenal in a minute.
Everyone, including myself, thinks Arsenal's bubble going to burst at some point.
Yeah.
They haven't got the strength and depth, the squad. They haven't had a blip. They haven't had a bump in the road yet. Could it be a strange season? There's stranger things happens.
Right, before we get your predictions then, two forwards we need to talk about. Obviously, Marcus Rashford, 15 goals this season, 7 since he came back from the World Cup.
Yeah, I've been very sceptical about him, about his performances. The problem is that performances do get covered up because of the fact of goals. You score goals and people will put
That's his job.
Yeah, and he scored goals when it's mattered now. He's scoring very, very important goals, and his game has lifted. You're seeing more of him. You are seeing now that he's not running into too many cul-de-sacs now with the ball at his feet. And the goals he's scoring are just instinctive. That's how he scores goals. He has to play that way. He doesn't need to overthink the next bit. He just needs to control pass move. That's what he needs to do. That's where he's at his strength, and that is where he's unstoppable because of his pace is immense once he's on a roll.
Haaland, 27 and 23, 2-1 to get the first goal.
His numbers are a joke, aren't they? I mean, we're not even halfway through the season yet. What he can do, what he can achieve, the records he can break, his longevity could be incredible with his records. He goes missing in games. We've said this so many times. You look at him in games, you look at if you actually do what Sky used to do and put a player cam on somebody, his movement's not all that. He doesn't do a lot to affect a game at times. And his run's quite simple. It's straight into the areas that
Doesn't
are
go
effective.
looking for the ball, does he?
No, but he's got players around him like De Bruyne that can find him, the assists that are around him, Foden, Grealish, the run that he makes. Even the goalkeeper knows the run that he makes and he puts him in directly behind the defence.
It does worry me sometimes, Paul. I watched the Everton game and it just worries me that the emphasis was to find him. Then once he's out of that team, they play Chelsea. There's different goal scorers.
Yeah.
While he's playing, because teams don't win league titles with just one goal scorer. It's teams.
That's what they did last year, wasn't it, Parks?
Yeah,
I mean, they did exactly that last year. The goals came from everywhere last year, where the goals now they've changed the play and it's very concentrated towards him.
Yeah.
But like you say, against Chelsea, it was everywhere.
Yeah, so I just wonder, it's a bit of a hindrance at the moment. They just need to tweak it a little bit and say De Bruyne can pass to someone else rather than everything now with the media trying to push this kind of De Bruyne, you know,
Yeah, I love watching Kevin De Bruyne. Right, score prediction time. I'll start with you then, Paul. What's the score going to be at Old Trafford?
I'm going to put some splinters in my backside. I'm sitting on the fence. I think it'll be a really good game. I think there's going to be goals in it. I think Guardiola will overthink it. I think if I was to be pushed, I'd say United to win. I'd go 2-2 draw. But you're not going to get value in the bets here. You're going to have to do a bet builder. This is a game for a bet builder. You're going to have to go bookings. It's a Manchester derby. You get booking points. There's going to be loads of corners and there's going to be goals.
Derbies have changed a bit. Challenges don't fly in as much now, do they?
I'm going bet builder, bookings, goals,
and what
goal
score?
Scorer. 2-2.
2-2 is 12-1. Come on, Em, give us a score.
Well, I can't do it the way that the other Paul done it. I'm just going to say United to win 2-1.
United to win 2-1 is 7-1. No, it's not, in fact. It is United to win 2-1 is 12-1. 12-1. Man City to win 2-1 is 7-1. I should have put my glasses on. I'm getting old. That's one of the issues. I need to go to Specsavers. Right then, that's the Manchester derby. 4:30 Sunday. It's the North London derby. Tottenham are unbeaten in their last 8 Premier League home games against Arsenal. Last season it was 3-0 Spurs, and then at the Emirates it was 3-1 Arsenal. Right then, Robbo, this is first versus fifth.
Yeah, I mean, nobody could have predicted the season that Arsenal have had. I think without Jesus, and Nketiah has stepped up to the plate now, he's scoring the goals. There was a huge question, we discussed it before. Do they need to go into the window in January and buy a striker? And Nketiah's proved that they don't. It looks like they might still reinforce the squad. Squad depth, I think, is the only thing that will test Arsenal over a period of time. They haven't had a run of results where they've had to really dig in and questions have been asked. But I think now, from a Spurs point of view, I worry the way that Spurs are. Apart from 20 minutes against Crystal Palace, where Harry Kane was outstanding, recent performances have been not what you'd expect.
Real Jekyll and Hyde, isn't it, from Spurs?
Very much so. Defensively, I mean, how many times have we sat here and said, conceding the first goal, conceding the second goal? You can praise the character of the team, you can say they've got a great character, they've got a great togetherness coming back into games, but you're not going to stay in the top four of the league if you're forever chasing a game. Defensively, they're short, they need a centre-half, they need wing-backs. And going forward, yeah, we know the quality they've got with Kane, with Richarlison, who's injured. Kulusevski's the most creative player. If he doesn't play, the creativity isn't there. Well, like I said to you, apart from 15, 20 minutes of Harry Kane being brilliant against Crystal Palace, I'm not convinced with Spurs at the moment. I'm really not.
What kind of job do you think Conte's doing?
I think he's done a good job thus far. I think the speculation surrounding his future isn't going to go away. But I also worry at the way...
Why is there speculation? Because, you know, the fifth got a great chance of finishing.
The speculation is he hasn't signed a contract. It's that simple. But I mean, I don't think it matters whether Antonio Conte has a 5-minute contract or a 5-year contract, because he's quite liable to turn around and go, I've had enough, or I've not been backed, I'll leave tomorrow. I think the only thing that matters for Antonio Conte's contract is the financial stability it gives him, or that the club would have to buy out. I don't think the longevity of his contract makes any difference to the way that man feels or his attitude towards the club. If he's had enough or he doesn't feel he's been backed, he'll walk, he'll go. But at the same time, he's got to get results on the pitch now. You know, the focus is turning to him. He doesn't seem the same manager he was when he came in at the first. You know, you see his passion on the touchline, you see him up and down. He seems to be going through the motions a little bit to me. He seems a little bit disgruntled, a bit unhappy with his squad, unhappy with his players, and he's not getting a tune out of that team at the moment.
Where do you think Spurs are at?
Where they're at?
Yeah, they seem to be a bit up and down, don't they?
Yeah, they're just levelling out just to become Spurs again, really. They have their moment.
Spursy.
Yeah, that's the old saying that goes on. They're not exciting. The one thing about Spurs before used to get wonderful, watch them play football, and there's always a good side to watch. I've done a game before the World Cup at Spurs, and I went into a lounge with quite a few of the old Spurs players and a lot of the high-ranked Spurs players, and one of them...
Paul wasn't in there.
No, I wasn't in there, obviously. I was busy with the World Cup.
No, Paul would have been too young to be in there, by the way. And one of them, which, you know, one of their greatest players, just turned around and said, I've never watched a Spurs team play without any creativity. And he was 100% right. Coming from that man, I was just kind of, yeah, you can say that.
They're not a good watch.
They're creative players.
They're not a good watch.
They're not a good
really
watch.
not.
They're very bland. You look at the play. Their two key players are off tune this season. One of them is scoring goals to cover over the cracks. The other one still is not right, even during the World Cup. Son, yeah.
He won the Golden Boot last year, level with Salah.
Yeah, so he is struggling. Conte is nowhere near what he was as a manager, as what he was at Chelsea. That enthusiasm and that orchestrating along the touchline has definitely gone. He has not got the same passion as what he had at Chelsea managing Spurs at this moment in time.
But if Spurs win on Sunday afternoon, that's the halfway stage, that's 19 games gone. They obviously put the pressure on the top four. Well, they might even move into the top four, depending on how Manchester United and Newcastle go on the weekend. It could kickstart the end of the season, couldn't it, for Spurs?
It could.
Beating Arsenal at home.
It could. That's the glass
the
half.
Biggest game.
That's the glass half full way to look at it. But the pessimistic side of me is the way that they're playing. If they lose the North London derby, they're coming here to Manchester on Thursday night. They're away at Manchester City on Thursday night. If they lose to Arsenal, lose to Manchester City, they're miles out of the top four. They've had 3 or 4 terrible results. Conte all of a sudden is under pressure again. I wouldn't be surprised if the manager walked or there was a big decision made if they don't win these 2 games. I think Tottenham are coming to a really, really crucial point in their season, a real crossroads. If they don't get a result against Arsenal, Man City away, they've got West Ham at home coming up, they've got City at home coming up. Things could be very, very different or very good for Tottenham in a very, very quick turnaround. I wouldn't mind having a look at the managerial odds at some point in the next few days to see what Conte is for next one to go.
Interesting. Come on, scoreline.
Again, I mean, there's always goals in this. 2 teams that go forward. Tottenham, not great defensively. I can't back against Tottenham at home. I'm going to go for a 3-2 Tottenham win. A last gasp winner from Harry Kane.
3-2 Tottenham is 25-1. Good record at home against Arsenal, as I mentioned. Come on, then, scoreline.
And this North London derby is all about home form. That's the strength of it. So I'm going to go against the grain and say Arsenal win 2-1.
Arsenal.
It's all about home form.
Arsenal to win 2-1 is 15-2. Right, then we're going to rattle through the other games. Obviously, we've concentrated on the two huge derbies this weekend. But it's a big game for another one of your old clubs on Friday night. Aston Villa versus Leeds. Because if Leeds aren't careful, well, are Leeds in a relegation fight again?
Yeah, they have been from day one, from as soon as the season started. The manager's still yet to prove himself. He's convincing people slowly, like with results against Newcastle. I think the signings that they've made so far is positive. But then you look at the recent performance against West Ham, when they had West Ham in a place where they should have beaten them. Worries me going into this game and looking at it, Leeds have got the worst away record in the Premier League. 5 points from 8 away games. Not great on the road. They look susceptible, still conceding too many goals. And Villa on the flip side of that, with Unai Emery coming in, look to turn the fortunes around. I think he's won 3, lost 3 and drawn 1, but they're in a better place than where they were. Leeds, for me, definitely are in a relegation fight, yes.
Scoreline for Friday night?
I think it's going to be an important win for Leeds. I mean, it's against everything I've said. Nyonto's come into the team and he's been excellent, really direct, really good going forward. There's one thing you can always back with Leeds, is that they'll concede. So for me, the bet is away win, Leeds to win, Nyonto to score, both teams to score. 3-1 Leeds.
3-1 Leeds, right. Parks, Villa, Leeds.
I'm just going to go with my favourite scoreline, away win Leeds, 2-1.
Another away win for Parks. That's Friday night, Aston Villa versus Leeds. Obviously, we've spoken about the 12:30 kick-off on Saturday, which is a Manchester derby. Brighton versus Liverpool.
Brighton always let me down when I go from. Just when you think they're on there, they seem to drop there. But they're playing Liverpool.
There's only 1 point between these two sides.
Yeah, no. But when I'm a big fan of Brighton. I love the way they play, the way they lose a player and someone else comes in, nothing changes. Everything the same, normal service resumed. I'm going home win, Brighton.
What score?
Oh, do I have to give you a score as well?
Yeah.
Liverpool always going to score goals. I'm going to go 3-2 Brighton.
3-2 Brighton. Robbo?
I'm with Parks. I've seen Brighton a couple of times this season. Saw them at Goodison. I know Everton were poor, but they were excellent. They won 5-1 against Borough away in the FA Cup with the changed team. Really like what they do, like the way that they play. Seen Liverpool a couple of times this season. Saw them at home to Leicester, which they won. Wasn't convinced. Saw them away at Brentford, which they lost. And I don't think that this is any easier than going to Brentford. In fact, I think it's probably more difficult. So I'm going to go for a Brighton home win, 1-0.
Brighton win as well. Right, 3 o'clock game on Saturday, Everton, Southampton. We haven't got time to give this justice. This game deserves its 18th versus 20th. Southampton have lost the last 6 in the Premier League, but have just had 2 good wins in the Cup. Could this be Frank Lampard's last game in charge?
Well, it could be. Every manager's 1 game away from the sack, aren't they? And I mean, the way that Everton played against Brighton, like I said, they were one of the worst Premier League teams that I've seen. But you look at them when they played against United in the Cup, and the week before they played against City in the league, it was a completely different side. There's so much narrative to this Everton story, what's going on behind with the board, with the problems off the field, the money that's been spent, grossly mismanaged. Yes, it could be Frank's last game. It's a really tough one. He's got an Everton team that are Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know what you're going to get. You've got a Southampton side, for me, which, I mean, you've got the 2 poorest sides in the Premier League that I've watched this season, Everton and Southampton. Southampton, for whatever reason, managed to get a result against Manchester City, which I was amazed by. This is a real relegation 6-pointer. I think it'll be tough for Everton, and I think the home advantage could be a disadvantage. 1-0 Southampton.
Oof. Good scoreline.
1-0 Everton.
1-0 Everton.
We're predicting a thriller anyway.
Be 0-0. Right, Forest, I tell you what, over Christmas have got themselves out of the bottom 3, Forest, and are in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. Forest-Leicester.
Oh, that's a big game, isn't it? I'm going to go for a home win, 2-0.
I've gone Forest. I've written down Forest to win to 0. Just depends how many players they sign between now and then, doesn't it? But Forest to win.
No, but
Leicester are struggling.
What a job he's done.
He's done brilliantly with his back against the wall, by the way. He's brought in a lot of players. It's going to take time. You know, you bring in 4 or 5 players, never mind the amount of players that he's brought in at Forest, and they're still bringing in players. He needed to. They needed to strengthen. But from where they were 6 weeks ago to where they are now is night and day, and performance-wise as well. I think Leicester are still in a position of they're not spending anything. He's not happy with his centre-halves, and I think it'd be a big ask for him. It's a local derby.
Prediction. It's a huge game. Prediction.
Forest to 0. 2-0 Forest.
2-0 Forest. Right, Wolves, West Ham. I tell you what, this is a big game as well, isn't it, at the bottom of the table? Wolves-West Ham.
It is. West Ham is my domain, and everyone around there just wants a manager change. They can't give me
Really?
Good,
Is that the general consensus?
They can't give me a good reason why.
Yeah.
And there is no real good reason why, in my opinion, because I think David Moyes deserves time to get this sorted out.
Time, surely.
Yeah, of course he has. But they're not, living in this world of, semi-final European football. We're special. But I think they're wrong in the way they're going. I think David Moyes just needs to change a little bit. He's showing too much sentiment to players, and he now needs to be nasty. He's brought in players, play them, get them playing in the right position. They're away at Wolves. I think he's going to go there and get a result. 1-0 West Ham.
I think it's going to be tight. I like what Lopetegui's done at Wolves. I think he's a huge appointment for them. They didn't get him the first time around. They waited. You look at his CV. I mean, Real Madrid, Spain, the last 2 clubs he's managed, and now he's at Wolverhampton. So they've got a real opportunity to go places with him. And I think it'll be a big ask. I saw West Ham at Leeds. It wasn't a team that the manager had lost the dressing room. They looked a decent outfit. They dug in for the manager. They got a result. And I think it'll be pretty much the same. I think he'd be quite happy walking away from Molineux with a draw. 1-1.
Brentford-Bournemouth.
Tough game for Bournemouth. Really tough game for Bournemouth. Gary O'Neill's had a tough start since he's gone in there. Brentford, I've watched him at home a couple of times. I love Thomas Frank, love what he does, love what he's about.
Good against Liverpool.
Spent a bit of time in his company, interviewed him a few times. He's just infectious. He's built a culture there, a togetherness in the club. And everyone says, and we say it all the time, home form is vital to stay in the Premier League. But he's doing better than staying in the Premier League. I can't see any way that Bournemouth can win this game.
Prediction?
2-0. One off a corner for a centre-half.
Give us a scoreline for Brentford-Bournemouth, 5:30 Saturday, Parks.
I'm going to say 3-0 Brentford.
Right, Sunday, Chelsea-Palace. As we record this on Thursday, Fulham versus Chelsea tonight. Whatever happens at that game, this is a home game for Chelsea versus Palace. Whatever happens tonight, Chelsea need to win this home game, don't they?
They do need it just for
Sunday, 2 o'clock.
Yeah, for themselves. And they're up against a side who are desperate, struggling at home now, Palace. Away from home at Stamford Bridge. Not one of their better places to visit, but I've got to go. Chelsea are going to win at some point. I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea.
Scoreline for Chelsea-Palace.
I think Chelsea will win regardless of how they get on tonight against Fulham. I can't imagine this is a pretty game. I think Patrick will go there, try and destroy, try and make it difficult. Chelsea are not a team with any kind of rhythm. This won't be a pretty game. 1-0 Chelsea.
And finally, 2 o'clock on Sunday, Newcastle-Fulham. Newcastle unbeaten in their last 13 Premier League games. Obviously, we're in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. Knocked out by Sheffield Wednesday. Well done to Dean Windass, his lad. He played really well, Josh, didn't he? How do you see Newcastle at home against Fulham?
Difficult to back against Newcastle at home, regardless of who they're playing, because of the culture that Eddie Howe's created there, the way that they play. They've got an identity now. They've got a togetherness. I think we saw a little bit of that on the television with the insight that he allowed the camera into the dressing room after the game. Just a little bit of togetherness, a camaraderie in the team, the attackingness that they've got together, and the back four looks strong. So it's going to be a big ask for Fulham to go up there, and I can't see anything but a home win.
Your old club, Fulham. Got maximum points for the festive period.
They have, yes, but I think I've got to concur there with Paul. As much as I've seen Fulham go to the big boys and cause problems, wonderful side when they get hold of the ball, the way they shift it. But I think you're going there, you're looking at maybe no Mitrovic as well, no focal point. I think I'm going to turn around and say, I don't know if he can play in that one. It might be, if it's only one game, it might be just the one game.
He's just banned tonight, Mitrovic.
Just banned tonight, so he can play.
Back to play his old club.
But, yeah, so I still think Newcastle to win this one. Paul said everything. They are strong side.
Right.
2-0.
Huge weekend. Thanks for joining us, fellas. So Paul Parker is going for Manchester United and Arsenal, and Paul Robinson's going for a draw and Spurs in the 2 huge derbies. Enjoy the Manchester and the North London derby. And remember, if you're having a bet this weekend, keep it fun and gamble responsibly. See you soon.